It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Hey, this is a Saturday special. And today, in that intersection between the digital and physical world, I have Kim William Gordon. And I've known Kim William Gordon for about 3 or 4 years now. And he actually has some experience inside the imaging channel, so he understands our space. But right now, Kim, he's back in college. He's trying to get his doctorate. He's pretty close. He's doing his dissertation on learning and technology around learning involving AI. And I thought it would be really cool to talk to Kim because we all know that the SMB space has moved their digitalization up about 5 to 8 years. Kim, it's great to have you on. How are you doing, man?
Fine. I really appreciate the invitation. This is going to be fun.
Well, I'm really intrigued by the future of education, and obviously with all these kids being forced home, with college kids coming home, and everybody's learning now in a digital landscape. So for the last month, we've had the whole world of education living inside a digital landscape for the most part. You've been in that landscape because you're a futurist, but you've been in that for about a decade. And it seems to me that, you got to be happy because everything you've been talking about is right on the cusp of becoming a reality.
Yeah, it's been fun. Some of the things that I've told people for years, they're finally beginning to recognize wasn't as loony as they thought they were.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I try to think outside the box. I try to look and bring the future to the present. Because we all know obsolescence is delivering the past to the future instead of the future to the present. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what's going on with you. And, explain to us really how you're using technology and AI to help educate not only children but adults.
So I think the best way to describe the use of artificial intelligence, and by the way, the technical term in the educational sector is adaptive learning technology.
Okay.
So it's referred to as either AI/ALT or simply ALT. So if you see that acronym, that's what that's all about.
Sweet.
But the simplest way to describe it is to have each of you go back and think about your experience with things like Facebook, Google, Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Those systems, after a while, very short while, actually begin to understand who you are, your likes, your dislikes, even your credit rating.
Sure.
And if you take that algorithm in the background, which is really composed of a series of different artificial intelligence constructs, you take that algorithm and you unplug it from those commercial services and you plug it into an educational service. Now you have an educational system that the AI is your personalized teacher. It knows what you know, what you need to know, when you learn, how you learn. I could go on. It's just remarkable how intimately personal an AI can make the educational experience. Then you wrap a human teacher around that whole system, and they're responsible for assisting you in conceptualization, insight jumps, in inspiration, all of the things that most teachers will tell you that they enjoy doing anyway.
Show us that slide. I mean, you showed me a slide. It kind of sums this up. It's a pretty powerful presentation.
So on the left, you see the traditional brick and mortar.
Okay.
What's key here, and I'll harken back to your relationship with these digital systems, is you don't have a one-to-many relationship with Facebook. You have a one-to-one relationship with Facebook.
Okay.
Same thing that we're attempting to do with an ALT student one-to-one model there on the far right. But where we've been for the last 140 to 150 years is in the traditional brick and mortar classroom. You've got one human teacher and you've got a lot of class students.
40, 50, yeah.
Same thing is going on in the current e-learning model. We have one human teacher, and then we have a number of students, one to many. What ALT and AI can do for the educational sector is you can see that ALT teacher assistant is sitting right next to the human teacher. They're personalizing the educational experience. We now have a one-to-one relationship between the educational community and the personalized learner environment. It's fascinating.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff, man. That is pretty cool stuff. So this has to be extremely controversial because you're taking away, everybody's going to talk about the human relationship and, schools are built for social means too. And if we put everybody teaching them by themselves. So explain some of that and some of the, the heartaches that you've been going through for the last 10 years as you talked about this before anybody could really visualize
Actually, I've taken those to heart. It shows up in my dissertation itself. I am paying attention to the whole socialization aspect. But one of the things we need to understand that socialization is not directly related to education. You don't need a classroom full of unruly kids to develop a socialized environment. What you need is a socialized environment. So what folks are beginning to think about, those of us in the ALT industry, is what does a class environment begin to look like? And we're beginning to suspect it looks more like a library or a laboratory or even a makerspace, where an accumulation of students can gather in order to accomplish a mission. That also teaches them a better degree of collaboration, creativity, and creative thinking.
I would think respect for each other too, because they're all being taught individually versus.
Well, and what really begins to happen, and this is where things get I won't say controversial, just curious at how we're going to implement it, is you no longer have age levels. So you could have an 8-year-old math genius, for example, that's working directly with a freshman in college. So that's the educational component, but you don't want that 8-year-old in a social environment with that freshman in college. You want them to learn socialization skills with their own peer group. So we could see a distinct disconnect or a removal of some of the functions that we think school is providing today into more efficient means in order to accomplish the mission that we'd like them to accomplish. Now is the time for creative thinking, no doubt about it.
It's pretty amazing. So let me ask you a question. So you've been talking about this for like 10 years. People thought you were insane. So now, now we're in this pandemic. People are starting to realize, man, there's a lot of technology being used around education. I think higher ed's going to take a real hard look at what's going on right now. And a lot of kids and the families are going to say, why are we spending all this money to go to a brick and mortar institution when we could do this through a platform of technology? So are people calling you up now and saying, hey, tell me more about that stuff you used to talk about?
Well, actually, I've been staying a little low key because I've been so focused on wrapping up the data analysis component of my dissertation, which was composed of proposing a much more elaborate version of what I just displayed on the screen for you, and then vetting it with professionals in the field. And by professionals in the field, I've talked to presidents of universities, I've talked to chief learning officers of AI, ALT companies, I've talked to dozens of students, I've talked to dozens of teachers. And I'm taking all of their observations and their critique of this proposed model, and I'm building what I'm referring to as the Gordon model of education. And hopefully it will cover most of the objections that I've heard for the last 10 years, because even though I've heard the objections, I am taking note.
Well, I got to tell you something. There's a whole lot of people aware of technology like they've never been before. We'll see a massive shift to the digitalization of America, not only businesses, but individuals too. How many people for the first time bought groceries, online? How many people there's so many things that people are doing that they knew that was available, but they just didn't want to take advantage of it. Well, Kim, it was great having you on and talking to you. I want to do this again when you get more involved, when you get that doctorate and come back on, we'll have a little party for you. But,
you got a deal.
Hey, I really appreciate your time. And, obviously, I like futurists. I like to talk about that stuff because no matter what you do, we all know this. If you try to deliver the past to the future, you become obsolete. And we definitely want to be delivering the future to the present and keep current and relevant. So.
Well, and as I'm quoted often as saying, quit trying to think outside the box. Just realize there is no box.
Yeah, really. And we got to act outside the box more than think outside the box.
Exactly.
So I'm going to end this like I always do. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo. Thanks, Kim. We'll see you later.